Hi, in this video, we're going to cover the grass wedge. So we're going to click on grass cover wedge here. In a previous video that you'll see in the Help Center, we covered the entering of the covered data and the entering of livestock. So we have a cover here done on the 7th of February. We have the data in, so let's look at the grass wedge and see what we can do in the grass wedge screen itself. So the grass wedge is loading up here, and we can see at the top, if you look at the three tabs, I can go back and change my covers in here if I have to. I can change my livestock in here if I want to, and this is the wedge. So there's three screens: the cover, the livestock, the wedge. One thing just to point out from the start, if I come down this screen, we want you to be able to enter the livestock in here as well. So you can do the livestock from within the wedge or within its own screen. And we did that on purpose because when we were saving the covers, we were very keen to capture livestock numbers and livestock demand. But we can also change the same numbers from within the wedge itself. So if I go back up the top, I'm just going to work my way down this screen. Up here I can export to Excel or to PDF. If I export to PDF, it's the ideal way to print it off for a discussion group meeting or to bring it into your advisor, or if you're going to a farm walk, you can export to PDF your latest wedge and then do a hard copy printout and bring it with you. As I come down into the wedge itself, the bars are wider for bigger area paddocks. This paddock is the paddock that's part grazed during the last walk. You'd only expect one or two paddocks like that on any given walk because they're the ones that are partially grazed. If I come down a little bit more, I start seeing the key data, like the average farm cover is 1,038, the growth is 8, the demand is 6, demand per day is 120. So I have all the key variables here. And in other documents in the Help Center, we'll show you targets on what is a good cover per livestock unit, what farm cover do you expect at different times during the year. These are important parts of the grass measuring story as to what targets should you achieve with these variables. So look at the Help Center for more documentation and what numbers you should be looking for, especially for people starting off on grass measuring. It takes a little bit of time just to get used to where you should be with different variables. As I come down the screen, the next section here is you can record notes. So I recorded a note saying looked good. I can edit that, I can delete that. These are notes that you can create for yourself for your own knowledge later on. If your farm advisor logs in, they can see your notes, and it's quite useful to give them an explanation of what you felt happened during that cover. Come down a little bit further, I have my management box, which is my rotation length, which this is in February, so I have a rotation length of 100, which is reasonable in early February. 21 is your typical rotation length, obviously during the summer and the main growing season. We're basically saying this farm is grazing down to 4 centimeters. If you're grazing down very tight, you could put that lower. If you're grazing down quite badly, you could put that higher. 606 over here is the target pre-grazing cover. So if I come back up here, that's where this line meets on the left hand side of the wedge. That's 606 there. If I want to edit the target pre-grazing yield, it would be rare enough to have to do this, but I can manually override that and change this to 400. And if I update and save my wedge, we'll just go back up to the top and see how that impacts. So up to the top again, you see where it meets on the left hand side at 400. Now the only people who really should be manually overwriting the calculations, I would say, is a low stocked farm. If you have reasonable stocking levels, you do not need to be manually setting your target pre-grazing yield. 606 is calculated by the system based on stock numbers and grass intake and rotation length, so it's better to let the target pre-grazing yield be calculated by the software itself. One of the things to point out here is, you see the way we have a number of different stock types on the farm. A very useful button in PasteureBiz Ireland is stock types, because if I click on stock types, it'll bring up all the stock types in the system. And if I come down here, I can say, well, I don't have 1 to 2 year olds out, I don't have these out, I don't have these out. And I can go back up here and I can say I don't have autumn milkers. And you can actually change this if you want. If you want to call these, you can have up to 4 dairy milking groups. This is dairy group 1, dairy group 2, dairy group 3, and dairy group 4. But you can put names on these 4 milking groups. You can call them spring milkers, autumn milkers, you call them high yielders, low yielders, fresh calvers, stale calvers, whichever way you want, right? So I'm coming down, I say use this stock group. And effectively what we're doing here is we're customizing Pasture-Based Ireland for the stock that you have grazing your grass platform. It gets rid of all the stock types that you don't want to have on your platform. If you at any stage in the future you decide, well, I'm going to put other stock types out, you can click on stock types and you can come down and say, well, I have calves out now and I have 1 to 2 year olds out, and I can turn them on and they'll be active then for the rest of the until such time as you decide they're not on your grass platform anymore. So it's just a nice way of customizing the livestock grid. So just keep coming down here, and this is we kind of have all of the data in one big long list because it's suitable to browse on a phone and suitable to browse on a tablet. So if I go back to the grid at the bottom, this is effectively all of my paddock results with the heaviest cover at the top. So paddock number 9 had a cover of 1925, a growth of 3.6. You see here we have number of grazings. Jagga's just launched the Graze 10 um, scheme for 2017, and the target is that every farm will graze 10 times a year and they'll get 10 tons of utilized grass consumed. So as you graze during the year, watch these numbers increasing from 0 hopefully towards 10. These are the number of times that silage is cut in the paddock. Days since last graze is quite handy because as you put grazing dates in during the year, you'll see how many days since last grazing. We've only got 1 paddock grazed out so far. This is paddock number 3 at the bottom. It was grazed out two days ago. But as you go through the summer and the spring, you'll see every paddock the days since last grazing. This is something is quite useful as well, is as you record fertilizer applications on Pasture-Based Ireland, it'll show you in here the days since last fertilizer application. So it'll be very nice to see days since last grazing, days since last fertilizer side by side. So it'll make this table very useful for a lot of reasons. And this shows you that the paddock at the top will last 20 days based on that level of cover and that level of demand. You can put in comments in here, just quality comments that there'll be more types of comments put in as we go through 2017. In here, you can change from being grazed to grass to other enterprise to reseed to silage, or you can leave it in grass. So this is you can change the paddock status. So if I go back up to my wedge, and notice paddock number 9 has got the highest cover on the left hand side. Now, ignore the fact that we're in the 2nd week of February and this would be a very unusual thing to do, but just show you how the software works. If I say, well, this paddock is actually going to be in silage, if we go back up to the top now, see the way it changes the color, so it highlights the silage. If I go back up to the top, paddock number 9 is no longer on the left hand side. So paddock number 9 was dropped from the wedge because we made the decision here and now that there's too much grass on the farm and we're going to put that paddock into silage. And next week we'll assume it's in silage unless you change it back to grass or make some action next week. So if I just say, no, sorry, I was only playing around here, I want to change it back to grass. So it will affect the wedge further up. So I'm putting paddock number 9 back into grass. If I go up to the top again, paddock number 9 is again on the left hand side. Again is just to one of the things that we have mobs here. There's some other information and there's a lot of work being done on mobs in 2017, but effectively what mobs are is that if you have all your cows on 25 paddocks around the milking parlour and all your young stock on maybe 10 paddocks further away from the milking parlour, you can do a wedge on the cow paddocks, you can do a wedge on the young stock paddocks, and then you can do a wedge on the entire farm. So it's a useful way to track the wedge on the farm, but then track wedges on different parts of the farm where different types of stock graze on the different parts. If I come back down, is there anything else we want to add into this video? And I think we have it pretty much covered. The other thing that we'll see in this grid at the bottom is that down in the bottom left I can change my grazing dates in here because this paddock was grazed out in the last week between the last 2 covers, so I can change that there. And then obviously I can see all of my covers on my growths here. So it gives you a good, this screen gives you a good overview of the data on the day of the walk, and it gives you good interactivity that you can make changes with your stock numbers, with your grass intake, with your actions on the paddocks. There's a lot of work being done in this area in the first 6 months of 2017, and it'll all be published later on in the summer. So this screen will change a fair bit during 2017, and at that time we'll come back and we'll do a new video on this screen again. So we leave it there for the moment.